In 2003, the CIA declassified a document called the Analysis and Assessment of Gateway Process. It bears the official seal of the Department of the Army, but its subject is entirely unmilitary, an evaluation of how to travel outside of space and time. And for nearly 2 decades, the most significant section of the report appeared to be missing. Page 25 was nowhere to be found. To understand why a document like this exists, we have to go back to the early 1980s. The Cold War is at its peak. U.S. intelligence agencies believed the Soviets were pouring resources into psychic research, telepathy, mind control, and remote viewing. The Pentagon's logic was simple. If these capabilities had even a 1% chance of working, the U.S. could not risk falling behind. That pressure led to a highly unusual assignment for Army Lieutenant Colonel Wayne McDonald. His task was to investigate a civilian meditation program called the Gateway Experience and determine if its techniques could be adapted for tactical intelligence work. The military treated these fringe metaphysical claims with the same cold analytical rigor they normally reserved for ballistic missile trajectories. The Gateway Experience was created by Robert Monroe. He was a radio executive who claimed to have experienced spontaneous out-of-body states, and subsequently engineered a system to replicate them using specific audio frequencies. He relied on a binaural beat. If you play slightly different frequencies into each ear, the brain compensates by generating a third phantom beat. This forces the left and right hemispheres to synchronize into a coherent rhythm Monroe called Hemi-Sync. The program uses the synchronization to walk trainees through escalating levels of awareness called focus states. It begins with Focus 10, where the body is asleep but the mind remains fully awake, and eventually scales up to Focus 21, a state described by the military as the very edge of physical reality. In McDonald's view, human consciousness functions as a mechanical receiver that can be systematically tuned and modified through these external audio inputs. To explain how a brain state could lead to an out-of-body experience, McDonald relied on the biomedical research of scientist Itzhak Bentov, who focused on the physical resonance of the human body. Normally, each heartbeat creates a subtle, chaotic vibration through the circulatory system, but the profound stillness achieved during the gateway process causes this vibration to smooth out. The result is a unified, rhythmic wave that pulses continuously from the heart up into the brain. According to the report, this creates a vibration throughout the skeleton and circulatory system that stabilizes between 7 and 7.5 hertz. This frequency matches the Earth's own electrostatic field. In this state, the human body functions as a tuned biological antenna, vibrating in direct harmony with the energy of the planet itself. This resonance leads to the report's most radical premise, that solid matter does not exist. At a subatomic level, everything we perceive as a physical object is actually a collection of vibrating grids of oscillating energy. Bentov's model describes the universe as a giant interference pattern, a self-contained hologram shaped like a torus. In a hologram, every cart contains the information of the whole. This implies all data from the past, present, and future exists simultaneously within this cosmic matrix. Your brain, the report says, is also a hologram, and consciousness is what happens when your personal hologram reads the universal one, like a needle on a cosmic record. Under this framework, astral projection is not a physical journey across distance. It is a shift in frequency that allows the brain to download information stored elsewhere in the hologram. To explain how the mind exits the physical world, the document argues that consciousness is an energy wave constantly oscillating between a state of motion and a state of absolute rest. This diagram illustrates the peak of oscillation. Reaching Planck's distance, the wave hits a point of absolute rest and drops out of spacetime. This is the click-out phenomenon. Human consciousness disappears from reality billions of times per second into an invisible state of infinity. The gateway techniques attempt to stretch the duration of these moments. By extending the time consciousness spends in that clicked-out state, a person can purposefully move between the flickering frames of physical reality. McDonald used these theoretical exits from spacetime to provide a scientific justification for his findings, arguing that a trained observer could bypass physical barriers and linear time to gather intelligence. When the document was declassified in 2003, it quickly became an internet obsession. The fact that page 25 was missing from the CIA's archive suggested a high-level cover-up. For nearly 20 years, conspiracy theories filled the gap. Was page 25 too dangerous to release? Did it contain the actual instructions? In 2021, journalists finally located the missing page. It hadn't been suppressed. It had been sitting in the Monroe Institute's own archives, at one point reportedly stored in a barn. As this text shows, the content was a philosophical meditation on how REM sleep and deep tranquility relate to a state of universal consciousness called the Absolute. The missing page served as a Rorschach test for a public eager for a magical breakthrough, where decades of speculation about secret weapons were eventually met with a quiet discussion on the nature of sleep. Some aspects of the report are grounded in measurable science. Binaural beats are a documented auditory phenomenon, and brain hemisphere synchronization is a state that can be observed in a laboratory. However, years of military testing into remote viewing failed to produce the reliable, repeatable results necessary for intelligence operations. These inconsistencies eventually led to the termination of programs like Stargate in the mid-1990s. Modern physics provides no evidence that consciousness can exit the body, move through a cosmic torus, or traverse time. The Gateway Report stands as a record of an era where the pursuit of a geopolitical advantage led the United States government to attempt to map the theoretical boundaries of the human soul.